Two security guards walked a man through the marble lobby of Burke Dynamics headquarters in downtown Los Angeles. His hands were zip-tied in front of him. His coat was torn at the shoulder. His beard was matted. He smelled like a man who hadn't slept indoors in a long time. The employees at the reception desk watched. Some looked away. One covered her mouth. A man in a suit, a junior associate heading to the 11th floor, stepped aside and murmured to his colleague. They let anyone in now. The homeless man didn't speak. He didn't resist. He walked through the building with his chin up and his eyes scanning the walls the way a man looks at a house he used to live in. Because 12 years ago, he did. His name was Nathan Arjona. He was 54 years old. He was the original co-founder of the company whose lobby he had just been dragged through. He had designed the technology. He had written the patents. He had built the first prototype in a two-car garage in Pasadena with his own hands. The company, Burke Dynamics, now a $4.7 billion defense technology firm, carried the name of the man who stole it from him. Leon Burke, his former business partner. The man who had forged board resolutions, fabricated Nathan's resignation, and erased him from the company's history 12 years ago. The man who had turned Nathan's invention into a fortune and Nathan himself into a ghost. Nathan had been sleeping in the lobby of his own company for 3 nights before security called the police. Not because he had nowhere else to go. Because he was waiting. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for the hearing he knew would come. The trespassing charge that would put him in a courtroom in front of a judge with 1 minute to speak. 1 minute was all he needed. What Nathan Arjona said in that courtroom, and what he pulled from inside his coat, didn't just destroy a trespassing charge. It unraveled 12 years of corporate fraud and triggered a federal investigation that brought down the man whose name was on the building. And it started with 7 words. "Your Honor, I'd like 1 minute." Pause for 2 seconds and help me do something fun. Comment your city and country. I want to see how global this community really is, and I am looking for the 2 viewers watching the farthest apart today, so I can pin the winner. Now back to the story, because things are about to get very interesting. 12 years earlier, Nathan Arjona and Leon Burke sat in a garage in Pasadena, surrounded by circuit boards, soldering equipment, and a whiteboard covered in equations. Nathan was 42. Leon was 39. They had met at a defense industry conference in San Diego, where Nathan, an electrical engineer with 2 patents and a decade at Raytheon, had presented a paper on advanced signal processing algorithms for drone navigation. Leon wasn't an engineer. He was a business strategist. He had spent 10 years in venture capital, raising money for other people's ideas. He was charming, polished, and relentless. When he heard Nathan's presentation, he didn't see a research paper. He saw a company. "You've built the technology that every defense contractor in the country will need in 5 years," Leon told him over dinner that night. "You just need someone to sell it." "I don't want to sell it. I want to build it." "Then let me handle the rest. You build, I sell. 50-50. Nathan was cautious. His wife, Elena, had died 2 years earlier from ovarian cancer. He was raising 2 children alone, Zoe, 12, and Joey, 9. He worked from his garage because he couldn't afford a lab. He lived off savings that were running thin. Leon offered something Nathan couldn't get anywhere else: structure, capital, and a path to market. They incorporated in California. The company was originally called Arjona Burke Dynamics. Nathan held 50% of the shares. Leon held 50%. Nathan was CTO. Leon was CEO. The operating agreement required unanimous consent for any changes to share structure or executive positions. Within 3 years, they had a working prototype. Within 5, they had their first Department of Defense contract, a $42 million deal for signal processing modules used in unmanned aerial vehicles. Within 7, the company was worth $800 million. Within 10, $2.4 billion. Nathan built every piece of core technology. He held 11 patents in his name. He ran the engineering division. 340 employees working on projects that Leon couldn't understand without a translator. Nathan worked 16-hour days, ate dinner in the lab, and drove home at midnight to check on Zoe and Joey, who were being raised by a rotating team of babysitters paid for with Nathan's salary. Leon handled the money, the investors, the board, the press, and over the years, Leon began to handle something else, the narrative. In press releases, he was the visionary founder. In board presentations, he was the strategic architect. Nathan's name appeared less frequently, then rarely, then not at all. Nathan didn't notice. He was in the lab. He was building. He should have been watching. Subscribe now and stay to the end, because I am going to show you one document Nathan pulled from inside his coat that Leon Burke's legal team swore was destroyed 12 years ago. And when you see whose signature was forged on it, you will understand why this homeless man was the most dangerous person in Los Angeles. This is not drama. This is corporate theft, and we are about to break down exactly how they erased him. In the company's 9th year, Leon called a board meeting. Nathan was not invited. He was told the meeting was a routine governance session that didn't require the CTO's presence. What happened in that meeting changed everything. Leon presented the board with 3 documents. The first was a letter of resignation from Nathan Arjona, typed, signed, and dated. The second was a share transfer agreement, transferring Nathan's 50% stake to a holding company controlled by Leon. The third was an amended operating agreement removing the unanimous consent requirement and granting Leon sole authority over executive decisions. All 3 documents were forged. Nathan had not resigned. He had not signed a share transfer. He had not agreed to amend the operating agreement. His signature on all 3 documents was fabricated, created by Clark Sanders, the company's corporate attorney who had been brought in by Leon 2 years earlier specifically to handle this moment. The board voted to accept the documents. The vote was 4-1. The single dissenting vote came from a board member named Pauline Voss, a retired general counsel who told Leon, "This doesn't feel right." She was removed from the board the following week. Nathan found out on a Monday morning. He arrived at the office and his keycard didn't work. He called Leon. Leon didn't answer. He called HR. HR told him his employment had been terminated per the terms of his resignation. He called Clark Sanders. Clark told him the documents were legally binding. Nathan hired a lawyer. The lawyer reviewed the documents and told him the signatures looked authentic. Unless you can prove forgery, there's nothing to challenge. And proving forgery requires a forensic handwriting expert, which costs $40,000, plus litigation fees. Nathan didn't have $40,000. Leon had frozen the company's payroll account linked to Nathan's salary. Nathan's personal savings, already depleted by Elena's medical bills, were gone within 6 months. He sold the house. He moved Zoe and Joey to a small apartment in Inglewood. He worked contract engineering jobs, freelance, short-term, no benefits. He fought for 3 years to get a hearing, but every attorney he approached said the same thing. Leon Burke has the resources to bury this in motions for a decade. You can't outspend him. By year 5, Nathan was living in his car. By year 7, the car was gone. By year 9, he was on the street. But Nathan Arjona was an engineer, and engineers don't forget how things work. He had kept copies, not in a safe, not in a bank, in a storage unit in Pasadena that cost $67 a month, paid from odd jobs, panhandling, and the $300 a month Zoe sent him from her first paycheck when she turned 22. The unit was the last thing he had. He never told anyone about it, not his children, not the shelter staff, not the attorneys who had turned him away. Inside the unit, the original operating agreement, the real one with the unanimous consent clause. His original share certificates, the first patent application filed in his name, predating Leon's involvement by 3 years. Email printouts from the company's early years showing Nathan as co-CEO. And one document he had found on the night before he was locked out, a document he had seen on Clark Sanders' desk, face down, partially covered by a folder. Nathan had photographed it with his phone. It was a draft of the forged resignation letter, with editing marks in Clark Sanders' handwriting, and a sticky note attached that read, "Leon, signature sample attached. Will match to N's original patent filings for consistency, CS." A sticky note proving the resignation letter was fabricated, with the forger's initials, attached to a draft with his editing marks. Photographed at 11:47 p.m. on a Sunday night by a man who didn't know he was about to lose everything. Nathan had kept the photo on a phone that eventually died, but he had printed it, at a FedEx, at 2 a.m. on the night he was locked out. He had put the printout in the storage unit with everything else. For 12 years, the evidence sat in a metal box on a shelf in a storage unit in Pasadena. Nathan Arjona walked into the lobby of Burke Dynamics on a Tuesday morning in March. He was wearing a torn coat, unwashed clothes, and sneakers held together with tape. He hadn't shaved in weeks. He looked exactly like what the security team expected, a homeless man who had wandered into the wrong building. He sat on a bench in the lobby. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't speak to anyone. He sat there for 9 hours. When security asked him to leave at 6 p.m., he said, "I'll leave in the morning." They let him stay because the building's lobby was technically a public access atrium, a condition of the city's development permit. He came back the next day, and the next. On the third night, Leon Burke arrived for an evening board meeting. He walked through the lobby with 3 executives and a security escort. He saw Nathan on the bench. He didn't recognize him. He looked at security and said, "Get him out of here. This is a corporate headquarters, not a shelter." Security called the police. Nathan was arrested for criminal trespass. He did not resist. He did not speak. He held his hands out and let them zip-tie his wrists. In the holding cell, he made one phone call to Zoe. "I'm going to need you at the courthouse tomorrow. Bring Joey, and bring the key to the storage unit." "Dad, what?" "Zoe, listen. Tomorrow, I'm going to stand in front of a judge. I'm going to ask for 1 minute, and I'm going to need what's in that unit. Every folder, every document. Bring it all." Zoe was silent. Then, "We'll be there." Real quick, pause and drop a comment below. Tell me if you have ever been erased from something you built and waited for the moment to prove you were there. Share your thoughts, because this community is built on people who refuse to disappear. The trespassing hearing was held at the Los Angeles County Superior Court. Judge Quinn Mannheim presided. She was 52, precise, and had a docket that ran 12 cases a day. Trespassing hearings were usually 3 minutes. Plea, sentence, next. Nathan sat at the defendant's table. He had no attorney. He wore the same torn coat. His hands were folded. Leon Burke sat in the gallery.
Not because he had to, because he wanted to watch. Ned Pitts, his lead attorney, sat beside him. Leon had instructed Ned to attend in case the judge needed context about the defendant's history of harassment. The prosecutor presented the case. "Your Honor, the defendant was found on the premises of Burke Dynamics for 3 consecutive days. He was asked to leave and refused. The building owner has filed a complaint." Judge Mannheim looked at Nathan. "Sir, do you have representation?" "No, Your Honor." "Do you understand the charge?" "I do." "How do you plead?" "Your Honor, I'd like 1 minute before I enter a plea. Just 1 minute." Judge Mannheim checked her watch. She had 11 more cases. 1 minute. Nathan stood. He straightened the torn coat. He looked at the judge. He did not look at Leon. "Your Honor, my name is Nathan Arjona. 12 years ago, I co-founded the company called Arjona Burke Dynamics. I designed the core technology. I hold 11 patents in my name. I built the first prototype in a garage in Pasadena. My partner, Leon Burke, handled the business. We were 50-50. The courtroom was quiet. The prosecutor tilted her head. In the gallery, Leon's jaw tightened. Ned Pitts's pen stopped. 12 years ago, Leon Burke called a board meeting without my knowledge. He presented 3 documents.
a resignation letter with my signature, a share transfer agreement, and an amended operating agreement. All three were forged. My signature was fabricated by the company's corporate attorney, Clark Sanders, who left a draft of the forged letter on his desk with a sticky note that read, Nathan recited from memory. Signature sample attached. Will match to N's original patent filings for consistency. Initialed CS. The courtroom shifted. A reporter in the back row reached for her phone. I was locked out of the building. My key card was deactivated. My salary was frozen. I spent 3 years trying to find an attorney who would take the case. None of them could afford to fight Leon Burke's legal team. I lost my house. I lost my car. I lost 12 years of my life. He reached into his coat. Slowly. The bailiff stepped forward. Nathan held up one hand. It's paper, Your Honor. Just paper. He pulled out a thick manila envelope, wrinkled, stained, held together with a rubber band. Inside were documents. He placed them on the table. This is the original operating agreement, the real one. It requires unanimous consent for any change to share structure or executive positions. This is my original share certificate, 50%. This is the first patent application, filed in my name 3 years before Leon Burke was involved. And this, he held up a single printout, a photograph, a draft letter with editing marks and a sticky note. This is a photograph of the forged resignation letter draft, taken from Clark Sanders' desk the night before I was locked out. The sticky note is in his handwriting. The editing marks are his. The letter they showed the board was fabricated. And I have the proof. He looked at Judge Mannheim. Your Honor, I'm not here because I was trespassing. I'm here because I was sleeping in the lobby of a building that I built, that carries the name of the man who stole it from me, and the only way I could get into a courtroom was to let them arrest me. The courtroom was silent, completely silent. Not a phone buzzing, not a chair creaking. 12 seconds of nothing. Judge Mannheim looked at the documents on the table. She looked at Nathan. She looked at the gallery, where Leon Burke was sitting with his face drained of color. Sir, she said, that was considerably more than 1 minute. I apologize, Your Honor. Don't. I'm going to give you 3 hours. If you love your mom, you need to subscribe right now, because at the end of this video, I am revealing one thing that Clark Sanders did 6 months ago that nobody, not even Nathan, knew about. And when I show you the sealed confession he mailed to the California State Bar, you will realize the man who forged the documents had been trying to undo the damage for years. Trust me, the secret is worth the wait. Judge Quinn Mannheim did not dismiss the trespassing charge. She did something no one expected. She recessed the trespassing hearing and issued an emergency referral to the court's complex litigation division, requesting an immediate evidentiary review of the documents Nathan had presented. She retained jurisdiction over the trespassing case pending the outcome. She also issued a preservation order, directing Leon Burke and Burke Dynamics to preserve all corporate records related to Nathan Arjona's departure, including the resignation letter, the share transfer agreement, the amended operating agreement, and all communications between Leon Burke and Clark Sanders. Leon's attorney, Ned Pitts, objected immediately. Your Honor, this is a trespassing hearing. The defendant's allegations are irrelevant to the charge. Judge Mannheim removed her glasses. Mr. Pitts, the defendant claims he is the co-founder of the company that filed the trespassing complaint against him. He has presented documents that, if authentic, would establish his ownership of 50% of the entity. If he owns half the company, he cannot trespass on his own property. That makes his allegations directly relevant. She looked at Leon Burke. Mr. Burke, I'm ordering you to appear before this court in 72 hours with the original resignation letter, the share transfer agreement, and the amended operating agreement. If those documents are authentic, this case is closed. If they are not, she paused, we will have a very different conversation. The courtroom emptied. Nathan sat at the table. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from relief. 12 years of silence, and someone had finally listened. Zoe and Joey were in the gallery. Zoe was 24 now. She worked as a paralegal at a small firm in Glendale. Joey was 21. He was in his third year at UCLA studying engineering. Neither of them had seen their father in clean clothes in 4 years. Zoe walked to the table and sat beside him. "Dad." "Yeah? You kept all of it, for 12 years. I'm an engineer. We don't throw away documentation." Zoe laughed. It was a wet laugh, the kind that comes when something breaks and heals at the same time. Joey stood behind them. He put his hand on Nathan's shoulder. He didn't speak. He just stood there, the way Nathan used to stand behind Joey's chair when he was 10 years old, helping him with homework, being present without needing to say anything. Leon Burke hired a crisis team within 6 hours of the hearing. Ned Pitts brought in 2 additional attorneys and a forensic document specialist. Their strategy was clear: authenticate the resignation letter, discredit Nathan's documents, and characterize Nathan as a mentally unstable homeless man fabricating claims against a legitimate company. But in 72 hours, the strategy collapsed. First, the forensic document specialist examined the resignation letter Leon had presented to the board 12 years ago. She compared the signature against Nathan's original patent filings, his driver's license, and 6 other known samples. Her finding: the signature on the resignation letter exhibits characteristics consistent with traced fabrication. The pen pressure, stroke direction, and baseline alignment indicate a copy transfer method rather than a natural signing motion. In plain language, the signature was traced, not signed, copied. Second, Leon's legal team attempted to locate Clark Sanders to prepare him for testimony. Clark Sanders was unreachable. His office in Beverly Hills had been closed for 6 months. His phone was disconnected. His California bar license was listed as inactive, voluntary. Third, and this was the domino that ended everything, the California State Bar forwarded a sealed document to the court. It had been received 8 months earlier, submitted by Clark Sanders himself. It was a notarized confession. 7 pages, single-spaced. The confession stated that in the 9th year of the company's operation, Clark Sanders had been instructed by Leon Burke to fabricate 3 documents: a resignation letter, a share transfer agreement, and an amended operating agreement, all bearing Nathan Arjona's forged signature. Clark described the forgery method, tracing Nathan's signature from patent filings using a lightbox and matching ink. He identified the specific patent application used as the source. He described Leon's instructions, including the directive: make it airtight. Nobody should ever be able to challenge it. Clark Sanders had mailed the confession to the State Bar with a cover letter that read, "I have carried this for 12 years. I was paid $2.4 million for my role. I have returned every dollar to an escrow account in Nathan Arjona's name. I understand I will face disbarment and potential criminal charges. I accept both." The confession arrived at the State Bar 8 months before Nathan walked into the lobby. Clark Sanders had been trying to undo the damage while Nathan was sleeping on the street. Neither of them knew what the other was doing. The co-founder and the forger, 12 years apart, 12 years of silence, had both been building toward the same moment. If you are still watching, you are exactly the kind of person this channel was built for. Hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next episode, because this exact pattern of corporate identity theft and founder erasure shows up in another billionaire tech case I am covering soon. And the forged document strategy used against Nathan here becomes even more important in that story. The follow-up hearing was held 5 days later. The courtroom was packed. National press, tech industry observers, 3 attorneys from the SEC's Enforcement Division sitting in the back row taking notes. Leon Burke attended. He was required to. He wore a $7,000 suit. He looked like a man attending his own execution. The forensic specialist testified. The State Bar submitted Clark Sanders's confession as an amicus filing. Zoe Arjona testified as a fact witness. She had found the storage unit key 3 years earlier while helping organize Nathan's belongings at the shelter, but Nathan had told her not to open it. He said, "Not yet. The timing has to be right." Nathan took the stand. He was clean now. Zoe had brought him clothes. He had shaved. He wore a white button-down shirt that Joey had bought him at Target the night before. It was the most expensive shirt he had worn in 12 years. It cost $24.99. "Mr. Arjona," Judge Mannheim said, "walk me through the founding of this company." Nathan spoke for 47 minutes. He described every patent, every prototype, every late night in the garage, every contract won, every piece of technology that Burke Dynamics had built on his work. He spoke without notes. He spoke from memory, the memory of a man who had designed every circuit, written every specification, and solved every engineering problem that Leon Burke had taken credit for. When he finished, Judge Mannheim asked one question. "Mr. Arjona, why did you wait 12 years?" Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "Because I had no money, no lawyer, no address. I had a storage unit with the evidence and no way to get it in front of a judge. 3 attorneys told me I couldn't outspend Leon Burke. They were right. So I waited. I waited until the only option left was to walk into his building, sit in his lobby, and let him arrest me. Because the one thing a billionaire can't stop is a court hearing. He can delay it. He can bury it. But if someone shows up in handcuffs, a judge has to listen." He looked at Leon Burke. "I didn't come here for revenge. I came here because my name was on the patents. My hands built the prototype, and my children deserve to know that their father was not a quitter, a liar, or a failure. He was an engineer who built something real, and someone took it." Judge Mannheim ruled. She declared the resignation letter, share transfer agreement, and amended operating agreement fraudulent and void. She ordered Nathan Arjona's 50% ownership stake restored, retroactive to the date of the forged documents. She referred the case to the Los Angeles County District Attorney for criminal investigation of Leon Burke and Clark Sanders on charges of forgery, fraud, and conspiracy. She dismissed the trespassing charge. Then she added one sentence that was not legally required, but was legally devastating. For the record, Mr. Arjona was not trespassing. He was coming home. But here is the detail I told you to wait for. The secret nobody in the courtroom understood at the time. Clark Sanders had not simply mailed a confession and disappeared. He had spent the previous 3 years tracking Nathan, not to silence him, but to find him. Clark had hired a private investigator to locate Nathan on the streets. The investigator found Nathan at a shelter in downtown LA in the 11th year. Clark had wanted to approach him directly, to apologize, to give him the confession and the escrow account information. But the investigator told Clark something that changed his plan. "He's sleeping outside the building, 3 nights in a row. I think he's trying to get arrested." Clark understood. Nathan didn't need an apology. He needed a courtroom. And Clark's confession, time to arrive at the state bar before the hearing, was his way of making sure that when Nathan finally got his minute, the evidence would already be in the system. The co-founder and the forger had been working toward the same door for 3 years. Neither one knocked. They both slid their evidence under it and waited for the judge to open it. The criminal investigation moved quickly. Leon Burke was indicted on 12 counts of forgery, securities fraud, and conspiracy. Clark Sanders cooperated fully with prosecutors and received a reduced sentence of 18 months, plus permanent disbarment. Leon was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 9 years. Nathan Arjona's 50% ownership was restored. The company's name was changed from Burke Dynamics to Arjona Dynamics. Nathan served as co-CEO for 2 years before stepping down and appointing a management team. He didn't want the corner office. He wanted the lab. He went back to building. Zoe was made the company's general counsel, the paralegal from Glendale who had kept the storage unit key for 3 years because her father told her not yet. Joey graduated from UCLA and joined the engineering division. The first project he worked on used a patent his father had filed 23 years earlier. The $2.4 million Clark Sanders had returned to the escrow account was transferred to Nathan. He used it to establish the Elena Arjona Foundation, named for his late wife, which provides engineering scholarships for children of single parents. On the night Nathan moved into his first apartment in 12 years, a one-bedroom in Pasadena, 6 blocks from the garage where he built the first prototype. Zoe and Joey helped him unpack. There wasn't much, a few boxes of clothes, some books. The manila envelope, now empty, preserved in a frame. Joey hung the frame on the wall. "Dad, why this?" "Because that envelope was in a storage unit for 12 years, and inside it was everything that proved I existed." Zoe looked at the frame. She looked at her father. She looked at the apartment, small, plain, clean. "You could afford a bigger place." "I know." "You could afford a house." "I know." "Why this?" Nathan looked out the window. The garage was 6 blocks south. He couldn't see it from here, but he knew exactly where it was. "Because this is where I started, and I want to remember what it felt like to build something from nothing. Not from money, not from a boardroom, from a garage and a soldering iron and a problem nobody else could solve." He paused. "I forgot that for a while. When you live on the street long enough, you start to believe what people see when they look at you. A homeless man, a failure, a nobody. But I wasn't nobody. I was the engineer who built the thing. And these documents," he pointed at the frame, "proved it. Not to Leon, not to the court, to me." Joey put his hand on his father's shoulder. The same gesture, the same weight. The son standing behind the father's chair. "You were never nobody, Dad." "I know that now." "You knew it then, too. That's why you kept the storage unit." Nathan smiled. $67 a month, for 12 years. Your sister helped me pay for it." Zoe shrugged. "Best investment I ever made." They unpacked the rest in silence, the kind of silence that fills a room when something broken has been put back together. Not perfectly, not without scars, but solidly. The way an engineer builds things. Not for show, for function. Nathan plugged in a lamp. The apartment lit up. He sat in a chair by the window and looked at the wall, the empty frame, the empty envelope, the proof that he had existed when the world said he didn't. Somewhere in that frame, between the paper and the glass, was a thin layer of dust from a storage unit in Pasadena. 12 years of waiting, $67 a month, and 1 minute in a courtroom that turned into 3 hours, then 5 days, then the rest of his life. He didn't need more than 1 minute. He just needed someone to listen. Leon Burke had $4.7 billion. He had a legal team. He had forged documents. He had a corporate attorney who fabricated signatures for $2.4 million. He had a board that voted 4-1 to accept the lie. He had 12 years of silence, during which the man he stole from lived on the street, invisible, dismissed, forgotten. But Nathan Arjona had a storage unit, $67 a month, paid with pocket change and his daughter's paychecks. Inside that unit were the original documents, the real operating agreement, the real share certificates, the real patents, and one photograph of a sticky note that proved the forgery. Nathan didn't have a lawyer. He didn't have a strategy. He had an engineer's discipline. Keep the documentation, label it, store it, and wait until someone asks. Nobody asked for 12 years. So Nathan made them ask. He walked into the lobby of his own building, sat on a bench, and waited for the police. Because a trespassing charge puts you in front of a judge, and a judge has to listen. 1 minute, that's all he asked for. 1 minute to say his name, show the documents, and prove that the man in the $7,000 suit had built his empire on a traced signature and a stolen patent. The judge gave him 3 hours. The court gave him his company back. And the man who had been invisible for 12 years stood in a courtroom and said the 7 words that every person who has ever been erased dreams of saying. I built this, and I can prove it. Some people think homelessness is the end of a story. Nathan Arjona proved it was the beginning of a comeback that took 12 years, cost $67 a month, and required 1 minute of a judge's time. 1 minute. 1 envelope. 1 engineer who never threw anything away. Click the video on your right to see the 3 other corporate espionage cases where self-representation destroyed billion-dollar companies, the legal loopholes they exploited, and the one statute that changes everything. You will see the patterns these strategists use, the mistakes their opponents make, and the exact moment when the trap closes.